Hi everyone, welcome back to Business on the Beach, and we have a very special guest today. We've got Marc Mawhinney joining me. Marc, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me.
So Marc is the Born Coaches, the podcast, and he helps coaches. That's his thing. He helps them grow their businesses and practices. So Marc, shared a bit about how you got into helping coaches, because today we're going to be talking about the coaching industry as a whole, aren't we? So we could get into the weeds a little bit, but I'm curious as to how you got started.
Yeah, it's a long and winding road, like they say. My background's actually in real estate, and I did that for about a decade through my 20s. And I was helped back from a really bad situation, business closure, from the help by several coaches and mentors. And that's how I found out about coaching. I didn't know anything about it before then. I had no clue really what coaches did. And when it was time for me to start a new business, I thought, this is interesting. I really get what coaches do now, and I can see the impact that they make. So that's when I started my coaching business in early 2014. And after some time from coaching, as I went along, what I realized was I was working with I had a very broad range of who I'd work with. I was a coach for entrepreneurs, business coach. And I realized I had to narrow that down a little bit. And of my clients, there were two that were coaches. I had a lot of fun working with those clients, not to knock any other ones, but I just seemed to gel a little bit better with them instead of Joe from ABC Widgets. And I said, I'm going to plant my flag in the ground and work with coaches exclusively. And even today, years later, if I get anyone comes to me that's not a coach that wants to hire me, then I don't take them on as clients. I refer them off to a
Right,
business
got
coach
you.
that I know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's it in a nutshell.
Right. So what do you notice about the coaching industry? Because you've been doing this for a while, have you noticed the industry evolve? What sort of trends have you seen? How do you see the coaching industry as a whole?
Well, it's changed quite a bit even since 2014, really. When I first started, it was busy, and I thought, oh boy, maybe I'm missing the boat in 2014. Now I look at it, and there's people getting started that say, oh, Mark, you're lucky you got started at the right time. I'm too late. And actually what I'm saying is that we're really at the tip of the iceberg. So yes, coaching is booming, but there's still a lot of people out there in the quote real world who don't know about coaching yet and who could use help from a coach, and they haven't experienced that yet. So I could see it being much different in another 5 or 10 years, going to be completely different when we look back at this chat here now. But I mean, it's not just business owners who can benefit from coaches. You look at the overweight father who has to walk his daughter down the aisle at her wedding next summer, but his heart's a ticking time bomb, and he doesn't know if he's going to be around next summer. Well, he could use the help of a good coach for that. There's a couple that's been married for 20 years now. They're sleeping in separate bedrooms and haven't talked to each other. They're strangers in their own house, and they're waiting for that inevitable divorce. Well, that the couple could use the help of a good coach as well. So it's not just business owners, although that it definitely can benefit business owners. I think coaching can help pretty much anyone.
Does it differ from other services? So, excuse me. This sort of stems from if you're an instructor or a consultant or something along those lines. How does that differ from coaching just as the service that you provide?
Well, coaches can sometimes get really worked up over the definition of coaching, and sometimes I think they twist themselves up in knots between defining coaching and consulting and mentoring and so on. I
Mm-hmm.
look at it really as simple. I say coaching is getting the client from point A to point B. You're helping them get results. So obviously there's differences compared to, say, consultants, where they're handing a template or some sort of almost business plan to help guide them through. And it's a little different than coaching that way, but I don't get too hung up on it. I've had people say to me before, a lot of times I'm combining the two of them, coaching and consulting, kind of coach-salting, I guess you could say, if you combine the two words. And I say, well, I really don't care. I'm all about just getting the person from point A to point B, however they get there. So I don't get too worked up with the various definitions on it, but I think that's how I would define coaching really simply, not a 1,000-word answer. It's getting someone from point A to point B.
Yeah, I think it's slowly becoming obsolete almost. Like when people say, "Oh, I'm a consultant," or "I'm a coach," or "I do this," or "I do that." I think people are slowly moving away from that because I think you can't really tell, really, because some people say they want a coach, but they start working with a coach and they realize that actually this person needs a consultant instead. They need to be told what to do a little bit more. So the coach puts the consultant hat on and starts giving them the templates and the systems and the sort of the ABC of doing whatever it is, and it moves away from coaching just because it's based on what the person needs.
Hmm. Yeah, and the other thing with coaching, I don't mean to sound snobby with this, but you hear a lot that anyone can be a coach. And what you have to remember is it's one thing for the coaching side of it, but you're also an entrepreneur. So I feel like a lot of people jump into it and they think, oh, I'll slap up a website or start a couple social media profiles, and then I'll spend the majority of my time coaching. They'll just kind of come through the virtual doors. And it doesn't work that way. If anything, it's the flip side of it, where it's 80% of the time finding those clients, and then 20% of the time actually delivering what you sold them. So coaching isn't, not everyone should be a coach. It's not for everyone, and that doesn't make them bad, but you have to remember you're also an entrepreneur. So whenever I talk to a coach, I never say, how long have you been a coach? I'll say something like, how long have you had a coaching business? I'm combining those two words, coaching and business, which doesn't sound like a big distinction, but it is actually, because I want them to know that, hey, this is a business. It's not, don't think that you're not in business because you are.
Yeah, that's something that I personally had to learn quite quickly. So going from tennis coaching to personal training to then the online space as well, it was very much like you spend a lot of time actually coaching.
Hmm.
So when you're a tennis coach, you deliver group lessons, you deliver one-to-one lessons, and the group lessons almost fed people into the one-to-one side. So there was kind of this system whereby you use the group sort of work that you did to promote your one-to-one work, and maybe you did a bit of prospecting kind of around the venue that you were in, and you did
Hmm.
bits and pieces. But back then it was about, how good are your group lessons, because that's like a doorway, if you will, into your ability to coach on a one-to-one basis. And that was kind of how it tended to work. And personal training was a bit different because it was kind of, it's hard to really get your ability as a trainer from your ability to teach group exercise. Like, it's a very different ball game. So, excuse the pun there. When that sort of came to light, okay, in the online world now, you spend at least 80 or 90% of your time advertising yourself, marketing, branding, putting yourself in that position that people actually want to work with you. That's most of your time. You don't spend a lot of time actually coaching, do you?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned tennis, because I have a book right in front of me. I've been reading The Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Gallwey.
Oh, yeah.
And some people say, well, why should coaches read a book about tennis? Because we're not dealing with tennis, but it actually ends up being very relevant for coaches. It's not just about how to hit a spin or a backhand or court position or anything like that. So there's a book I'd recommend for people interested in coaching, which you wouldn't think of naturally, but it's The Inner Game of Tennis, Timothy Gallwey.
Yeah, that's why I think because not only did I used to play tennis, I used to coach it. I used to play basketball for university as well, which would be college, I think, in the US. And like sometimes the sport analogy is actually quite a good one, isn't it? When you
Mm.
think of like what it takes to be good in business, what it takes to be a good coach. Like when you start competing, you're considered an athlete. You've got to treat yourself like that. So like long training sessions, look after yourself, eat well. A lot of the stuff that people do as athletes, no one really sees. You'd be surprised how few people see a lot of what goes on but then people only see the results. So people say,
Hmm.
oh, you're chock full of coaching clients, but in reality, they're spending at least 90% of their time doing the other stuff that no one really notices.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, look at Olympic athletes too, how much work goes into something that they're going to do just once or maybe twice every 4 years or 8 years. It's absolutely crazy. And I've read different articles and stories about Olympic athletes actually having a tough time adjusting to the real world, so to speak, after they get done, because they've had such a regimented, disciplined life since they were children, just for this one goal. Then they reach the top of that mountain. All of a sudden it's like, well, now what? Kind of like people coming back from war. You've seen a lot of stuff and lived these experiences. Now you have to integrate back into society, and it's an interesting experience.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I never got to any high level with either sport, but it still took the discipline, and you have to set your own schedule. You've got to do this, that, and the other thing. And then when you've got to get into the real world now, or the big wide world, if you will, and you've got to give it all to yourself. Like if you've got a coach, 9 times out of 10, they give you some instructions. They tell you what to do, how to do it, when training sessions are, when workouts are, when practice sessions are, and you build your life around that. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're like, okay, I'm in the big wide world now, you've got to give those things to yourself. And I find that that's where a lot of people tend to struggle sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually had an interview with a coach years ago on my podcast, and he's worked with Olympic athletes as clients once they're done their sporting stuff.
Oh,
and he told me that those clients who are former Olympic athletes are his best clients because they get coaching. They're used to working with a coach. They don't question them. They just get it done. And he said that they're incredible clients. And I heard our interview once, Michael Phelps was talking about how he held the record for number of medals with Olympic stuff, how he got there. And he credits his swimming coach in that case too. So I see there's a lot of parallels and neat little synergies between sporting and coaching.
Yeah, have you noticed, is there a difference between coaches that have got a lot of experience versus coaches that have just started? Because people can learn about coaching to a certain degree. Like you've got people that, like in the sporting way, sort of go there for now. You've got people that have played sport, understand because they've had a coach, then they start coaching, versus someone that has been coaching for a long time and they've sort of grown up with it, and that's all they've sort of done. Because there are people that like sort of use experience almost as like, well, that's what makes me a good coach. And then you've got people that say, oh, well, I've got experience doing the thing. So it could be business, it could be relationships, it could be whatever. As they say, well, that's what makes me a good coach. So how do you actually add weight to the value of the two? And do they actually produce different coaches?
Well, it's one of those big debates. I've talked with people before in my Facebook group. This has gone back and forth where the question has been, should a coach have experience in a certain field to be a coach for that person? And my answer is always, I don't think it's black and white. I think that it helps if you have that background in whatever industry or field that it is, because then you can speak the client's language and know what's keeping people like that up at night, and you get it. However, you don't need to do that to be a good coach. So, I mean, you look at some of the best managers in Major League Baseball history were pretty crappy players, to be honest. Sparky Anderson, I think Joe Torre. There's some other ones that come to mind that weren't. I shouldn't say Joe Torre was crappy. He did okay, but there are a lot of people who couldn't really play baseball that well. Or Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland Athletics. Oh, yeah. He was a bust. He was like a big, high draft pick. He was supposed to be the next big thing and didn't do anything with his major league career. But he's had a second life as a major league general manager, and he's done super. That's what the movie Moneyball is based on, with what he did with the Oakland Athletics. Right. So I don't think you need to have done that. I think at the end of the day, a good coach is a good coach. And regardless of how good you are, if you're disciplined, you can keep yourself accountable. I don't care how good you are, you're going to do better with the help of a good coach. It helps to have a second set of eyes, someone that you can talk to, bounce ideas off of, and work with that way as well.
I guess that's the same as the certification versus non-certification debate as well. And to be fair, I'm actually surprised that it's gone on for this long, because I feel like over time, it's something we keep coming back to. Like, it happens all the time. Everyone go, oh, well, experience this, experience that, and certification this, and certification that. And I've got to a point where I just go, like, it doesn't really matter either way. Like, it's not important. It doesn't make any difference to your ability to coach. I mean, personally, I've got this not hatred for courses, but I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about qualifications, because I'm someone that has sports qualifications, fitness qualifications. I've got a degree in coaching, and it's just like, look, I'm not going to go on any course that tries to tell me how to do something.
Well, it's tough. Again, not to knock certification, because there's some great ones out there. However, I would fall on the other side of the debate to say that no, it's not. You don't have to be certified to be a good coach, because the problem is there's good certifications, but there's a lot of bad ones too. So who's deciding what's good, what's bad? I've just helped a lot of coaches over the years who come out of a certification and they've spent thousands and thousands of dollars. They're frustrated. They've been doing buddy coaching practice sessions, 200 of hours with someone, and they've done so many of these free practice buddy sessions that it's actually probably hurt their confidence in a lot of ways, because they've never charged for it, and they've spent a couple of years before they're even out of the gates, while there's other people that are out there that working, getting clients and building up their business and so on. So I can see some disadvantages that way as well. The issue being, I think that, again, that who certifies the certifiers, I guess you could say, who judges with it. So I don't have a certification at the time of this recording. Who knows what I'm going to do down the road. But I've never had a client of mine I've worked directly with hundreds of coaches one-on-one. I've worked with thousands if you include digital programs and other things. I can't recall ever having someone say, hey, Mark, I'm ready to buy or to pay you, but can you send over a scan of your certification before we complete the transaction? That's just never happened, right?
Love it.
Mine's from the school of hard knocks.
Yeah. I think you need to have something, though. That there needs to be something there that you can call upon to, I guess, answer the question of credibility somewhere. Like, if you're a business coach, okay, you can have a certification or experience, or you've helped people in the past and you've got testimonials that say that you're actually good at what you do. I think people need that box ticked, though, because there are options out there of people that have that box ticked. I think in the world where there's options, you need to have something. Doesn't matter what it is. You can have business experience. You could be a millionaire running a business all by yourself, but like, you could be a really bad coach. So I think we need something, I guess, that gives you some element of credibility in the industry that you're in. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one thing I realized from spending a decade in real estate throughout my 20s, I had, build up to 100 agents on my team by the end of it. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was doing a lot of coaching. I just didn't consider it coaching, right? When I was helping my team members and my employees or so on. So I could rely on that coming out of coaching. When I started coaching, I wasn't 19 years old, and with no or little life experience. I was 30. Oh boy, was I 35? I think at the time with it. But I had, was in business right out of university through real estate, so that definitely helped. Where I think certifications can be beneficial, I would never tell someone not to improve their skills. All I'm saying is that be careful where you're investing your money for how you improve. So when I say don't do certifications, it doesn't mean I don't invest in my personal development. I mean, I'm spending many thousands of dollars every year on courses, books, events, seminars, stuff like that. I just choose where to put it instead of going with certification. But where I think it could help for those is, let's say you are a younger coach, you're 25 years old, and you may not have the same life experience or so on. It could help if you get a good certification, because you can lean on that a bit if you get some pushback. Or if I'm seeing 21-year-old coaches out there, you're 20, 21 years old, you can lean on that certification. But I think as time goes on, you really have to build up your own brand and your own credibility, and not expect that, oh, I have a certification, so that's going to get me a bunch of business.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, really, because you can't rely on your certification either. Like, you can't really rely on something to mean that you can actually do what it is that you say that you can do. Are there any go-tos then that mean that that sort of box can be ticked? I mean, like, people would go through courses and go, well, that must be it then, I don't read anything else, which we both know isn't really true. But then there are people out there that will literally throw anything out there in terms of marketing or emailing or social media or anything to give the illusion that they're good at what they do, get clients, and they could be really, really bad. But they've got clients when the person that's actually not a bad coach is struggling. That then sort of brings up the debate of, well, is it good coaches or is it good marketing? Yeah, we'd probably have that debate for a long time.
Well, if I had to put my money on the excellent coach that's a bad marketer, or the excellent marketer who's a bad coach, who's going to be more successful, I'm going to put my money on the marketer. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. My suggestion to the excellent coach who isn't very good at marketing is put as much time and energy and focus into improving your marketing skills to get those clients in there. And since a lot of coaches want to help people, and I would guilt them into it, I would say, here, by not improving your marketing, people are hiring someone who's not as good as you are, and it's costing them money, it's stressing them out, and they're not getting the results that they could be getting if they were working with you. So you're being selfish by not improving your marketing and getting more clients. I would guilt them into it.
Yeah, that's a good point, to be fair, because it was the same back in the day when I first started. You know, you mentioned ages and things. I'm 28 of this recording, but I started tennis coaching when I was 16, and I had this conversation because I used to work at a David Lloyd club in the UK, tennis coaching, which to some people is I don't know, more of a premium club, kind of like a high-end sort of facility. So when I moved, I was about probably 19 years old when I sort of started it at that club. And yes, there were people of a certain age that wouldn't listen to a teenager taking advice on how to hit tennis balls. Oh, I'm 35, I know how to do this. So you've got this all kind of age can't actually prove competency either. To a certain extent, you could be doing nothing for 40 years, and someone that's been working their backside off for 4 to 5 years, yeah, they started off young, but they probably got a lot more experience of doing the thing that the older person would have, I guess. So,
yeah, well, it's an interesting point that you make, because when I started in real estate, my past life, I was 21, but I looked about 16 years old. I looked really, really young. I came across an old business card, and I was like, holy geez, get this kid a sandwich, because I look like the paper boy, not a real estate agent. And so I had that, I thought I could have that issue when I started in real estate. And the way that I combated it was, if anyone ever commented, oh boy, you're young or something like that, here you are asking to work with them on the most important investment of their life, which is their house for most people. I flipped it around for a couple things. And this goes back to certification. I leaned on my real estate company at the time, because we had 50% market share in the business, the company that I started with, Royal LePage. It's a big Canadian company. And I would have market stats, I would have pie charts and things. I would talk a little bit about Royal LePage's Canadian history, how many offices in Canada, rich history, and I would show the local market stats showing that we had really good market share. So I would lean a little bit more on my company. And as I built my business, it became more about Marc than Royal LePage at that time. The other thing I did is I flipped it around, because I said, hey, look, I know I'm young. I'm not going to hide that, right? I know I'm young, but I've got a lot of energy. I've got fire in my belly. While all these other agents are off taking a couple months to go down to Florida in the winters, or they're out at their cottages, or they're taking time off to enjoy their family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I am going to be working my butt off. For me, I've got student loans I have to pay off, and I really want to do well. And you're not going to meet someone who's going to work harder for you. And that ended up getting me more business. I turned it into a positive. And it's like an old sales trainer said, you make your skeletons dance. So this goes to whatever you're selling, you take the objections that you know you're going to be getting, you pull them out into the sunlight, and you just hammer them head on, you tackle them. So if you're the highest price in the marketplace, you can mention, hey, look, I know this is expensive. I'm not kidding. This is a lot of money. But then you go into turning it to get rid of that objection, or you tackle it head on, or kind of like with Hertz and Avis, right? Where which of the companies was number two? We Try Harder. Was it Avis? We Try Harder. Whichever one was number two, basically didn't try to hide that and sweep it under the rug. They basically said, we know that we're number two, but that's why we're trying harder. We want to be number one. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. One of the things that you mentioned before when we were talking about starting out around, some people can spend years doing free sessions as part of their courses or their certification or their, I guess, earning their stripes, so to speak, before they then start to charge for their coaching. And you said that people can burn out doing that. People can never really get to a point where they start charging for whatever it is that they're doing. It then causes the whole sort of, you get to a point where it's like, well, is coaching worth it? Because I've been doing so much for free. Does that mean I'm not actually worth charging for it? But then you've got so many hours under your plate, or under your belt, sorry, that, well, that, of course, you're worth it. You've got the hours in. You must be pretty good at that point if you know what you're doing to begin with. So how do you see free sessions? How do you see the discovery calls? You see a lot of that now. How do you see the exploration sessions and just getting people on calls for free?
Well, I'm not a fan of free sessions, not the free marathon type 2 or 3 hour type coaching sessions that some people are advocates of. I always say whenever coaches for free, baby kitten dies. There's another way to guilt coaches into charging. But I think there's a few issues, but every time that you coach for free and you give what you should be charging for, you give it away for free, subconsciously, I think you're scratching at your self-confidence. You may not even realize it, but that little voice in your head's thinking, okay, well, I'm doing this for free. It's not worth anything. And I think that does sink in after some time with it. So the way I prefer to do it, even on my calls, they're under 30 minutes. A first call with someone's really quick, 15 to 20 minute type call to see if we're a fit to work together. And I don't do free coaching. Now, when I say I don't do free coaching, it doesn't mean that they don't find that call helpful and I don't give any value. If I didn't know you, Mike, and you reached out to me, our first call, I'd be wanting to obviously learn more about who you are, what you're trying to do with your business, what your goals are, what are your challenges, why are you on this call with me? Because you didn't roll out of bed today and say, oh, I'm going to book a call with Mark for shits and giggles or whatever. There's a reason why you booked a call with me, and I want to figure out what that is. I might tell you some things in there, like suggest a book that I really think you should read, or something might trigger in my mind that I should mention to you. But the purpose of that conversation is to see if we're a good fit to work together going forward. It's not to say, okay, I'm going to do a 2-hour call with you and just knock your socks off, and then you're going to love what I do, and you're going to refer all your friends and family, and everyone will live happily ever after. And unfortunately, that's what the marathon free session advocates say is, oh, you got to show your magic, and they're going to love you so much that they're going to send you all this business. And that's usually not what happens. What usually happens is the person thinks, okay, well, that was good. I got what I needed from that. Now I can handle it going forward. I just got free coaching for 2 hours. Why am I going to pay $5,000 for a coaching package with you? Because you just gave me 2 hours for free. So that's my 2 cents on it. I know some people are the exact opposite and they would disagree with me on it, but no, I'm not a fan of free coaching.
What about if they've got no idea what coaching is? So does that change? Does that alter so Is there a certain point where you think maybe they need to know what coaching with you looks like before they then carry on, or do you take the same approach?
I mean, the way that I do it personally is I say, hey, look, I've been doing this since 2014. I've got tons of testimonials that you can see online. I've got a track record. I've got, you want to see what coaching's all about. I've got, as of recording now, 620 episodes on my podcast. I've got a free Facebook group with tons of stuff in there, almost 20,000 members in that Facebook group. I've got all these free resources. So for me personally, I'm not going to go into providing a free session. It's kind of like if you're a lawyer, someone comes in and needs to hire a lawyer for whatever legal issue. If I were the lawyer, I wouldn't say, well, I'm going to handle this case for you for free just to show you how good I am. And then down the road, you'll hire me if you kill someone or run someone over down the road, you'll hire me to defend you. It just doesn't work that way. There has to be an exchange of money with it. And unfortunately, in the coaching world, I see there are a lot of Mother Teresa coaches. And Mother Teresa coaches are ones who think that you should be coaching in a village somewhere far away barefoot and don't dare mention money or charge much of anything. And if you do charge a lot, then suddenly you're greedy. You're in it for the wrong reasons, and you're Gordon Gekko or J.R. Ewing. You're a horrible person. And I don't agree with that approach. Most of them are struggling and having difficulty paying the bills, and it's because they have a backwards view about money.
Do you find that actually impacts the industry as well? Like when you see people doing things like that, does that impact people's perception? And I say that off the back of, like, you've got a Facebook group and podcast and things. That's a sort of route that I take as well personally. So what I've also noticed as well is one of my friends is over in Florida, and she says that coaches have advertisements on the radio over here. It's amazing. We have none of that over in the UK. Like, what's going on? You've got coaches all over the place in America, or at least where she was. And it was just like, where does it all come from? How did he get this sort of, I guess, familiarity around coaching? Like, it's just expected that it is around. It is there. There is a coaching industry where, like, some countries and some places, like for instance, where we're from, over in the UK, like, we don't get that. That doesn't happen. People have a very sort of, oh, well, you're just helping people because you don't know how to do it yourself, or like, we don't really believe that coaching works, or we seem to have this very negative view of coaching in the UK versus in the US. And I think that's something worth speaking to, I think. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Florida. I had a call with someone yesterday who's a coach in Florida, and she was in the real estate industry. And then, of course, everything happened in 2008 with their market where it collapsed, and that's how she got into coaching.
Yeah.
Part of the reason it's probably well known in areas like Florida, lots of places in the United States, is a lot of people who got hurt with the Great Recession got into coaching. I think that they were, laid off from corporate gigs or they're getting out of real estate or whatever happened. And you had this influx of motivated people who are willing to get out there. Now, the other thing of it, I'm speaking as a Canadian, you're a Brit, so our cultures tend to be a little, I think I was born in the wrong country. I tend to be more American than Canadian in a lot of ways, but Americans, one of the things I like about them, they're not afraid to get out there and say what they do and blow their own horn, so to speak, which I actually view as a good thing. You Brits are often too polite, and you don't want to come across like you think you'll look like Donald Trump if you promote that you're a coach, right? And I think Canadians are like that as well in a lot of ways with it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you have to do that. So kudos to the Americans for getting it.
Yeah, I feel like, I think that's, again, there's an element of, we could be contributing to the problem to a certain extent, but I also think that we're contributing to the solution as well. But you've got to take with the bad with the good sometimes,
Yeah, exactly. I think you will see more of it right now. In my neck of the woods, you don't hear as much about local coaches. I work with coaches all over. I don't work with a lot of local people. I don't even target my local market. A few of them stumble onto my podcast, and I've had some clients from around here, but I don't target local. No. But I think as time goes on, you'll see more of it. So you will see more like you're seeing in Florida that you mentioned, with more traditional methods like radio and things like that, people coming out of the woodwork for coaches, where people understand what coaching is. When I told family members back in 2014 that I was becoming a coach, they were thinking, okay, or what sport? Are you going to try to make it to the NBA, or are you going to try to get to the NFL? What? And they didn't get it. I thought I had to carry a whiteboard around to try to draw out what exactly a coach is and stuff like that. And good luck with podcasts. Nobody knew what the heck a podcast was. Here, when I launched in 2014, like, what the heck's a podcast? Now things have changed. 2019 heading into 2020, a lot more people know what coaching is and podcasting as well. And I think that that's a good sign. I think it's going to continue going up, and there's going to be more saturation going forward.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like it's more and more popular, I suppose. What are your thoughts on the future of coaching? So this is a very broad question on purpose. So is it going to be one-to-one? Is it going to be events, online, offline? Are we going to see everyone wanting to become a coach because the barrier of entry is so low? Are we going to see the barrier of entry increase? Maybe. I know a lot of people are trying to do that, but not really succeeding all that well. What are your thoughts on the industry as a whole? Because you're someone that's been in the game for a while, you work with coaches, you interview coaches, you're very immersed in the industry. How do you see things panning out?
Well, I don't think it's ever going to be a point where 2 out of every 3 houses on a street are owned by a coach, something like that. So I don't think it's going to be quite like that. But I do think that right now there's a trend towards that kind of 4-hour work week type thing. And you see a lot of people saying, oh, you shouldn't be doing one-on-one coaching. You're trading time for dollars. That's a bad way to do it, because if you're doing one-on-one, you can't be laying on the beach and refreshing your bank account and watching the money roll in. And so they're pushing the other side of it, right? The hands-off stuff. And I don't think that there's ever going to be no one-to-one type coach. There needs to be that personal connection. So good examples with my business, as time goes on, I continue to do things to scale it and to make sure that I can keep some time free, but I never want to completely be away from actually working with clients. I'll always have some sort of touch point. Maybe it'll be just 1 or 2 really high-end clients for one-on-one coaching. I don't know, but I'll always have a little bit of that because that gives me energy with it. I would never want to be just separated by computer screen and never talking to anybody. I find a lot of coaches nowadays, they don't want to coach. They get started and they want to just sell the online programs and never have to actually talk to someone. And that's a tough approach.
It is. Yeah. I mean, if you don't want to talk to people, you just want to sit on a beach and watch the money rolling in, then that's not, in my mind, that's not really being a coach, is it? If you understand where I'm coming from. If you have 1 or 2 conversations a day with clients, that can be enough to cover more than your bills. So if you're not prepared to do that, then there could be an issue there with the industry in general, I suppose, right?
Well, it makes your coaching better. So a lot of times I'll be working with one of my one-on-one clients and they'll give me an idea for a program. Or if enough of them need help with a certain something, I think, well, I should be creating something around this. If I wasn't working with them directly, I may have missed those opportunities. So it'll make everything better. I'm working on a book at the moment. That book would not have been as good back when I first started because I didn't have the same experiences. I didn't have the same amount of time working directly with clients that I have now. So that book's going to be much better than it would have been 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, of course. I think we need to value that, I guess. I think, personally, just my own sort of opinion on this is, I think in the world of technology, coaches are going to value their time more, but I don't personally want to see coaching die out ever. I want to see coaching still have the impact that it's making. And I think that it's about serving the person, isn't it? Like, some people respond better from the one-to-one attention, and some people would much rather be told what to do, told how to do it, and they can go away and do it. So you have to help those different people, I imagine.
Yeah, there's room for whatever works for you. So it's all about building a business that you're happy with and not trying to fit into someone else's mold. Because when you try to do that, you're not going to have fun doing your business and you're not going to be really feeling motivated every day to work on it.
No.
with it. So maybe yours is one-on-one, maybe it's more of a hands-off or a hybrid model with it. I mean, I don't recommend working 110 hours a week of coaching sessions because you're going to burn out, if you do it that way. Maybe you introduce some things. So for example, a few months back, I introduced a laser coaching program. And with the laser coaching program, those clients of mine, we have 15-minute sessions, not 1 hour or 2 hours.
Right.
And they're really quick sessions. We get down to business quickly. They have access to me between the calls by email. They can pick my brain and they get homework every time. Then we book our next call. They've been working really well. So that's a model that not a lot of people have heard about. I find now, since I've been talking about it so much, more coaches are starting to dip their toe in the water, but it's not something that's really well known. But there's an example of, okay, well, maybe I'll do something that works a little bit better for me and works for the client too, and it all comes down to building the business that you want to build.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, really, because it's almost like you've got to go both ways, haven't you? You've got to factor in, how do your clients want things, but you also got to figure out, okay, well, what do I enjoy doing? What suits me? What suits the lifestyle that I want? I think you'd be surprised at how many people, if they put the lifestyle that they want first, that tends to cross off a lot of the options that are out there.
Yeah, so I'd recommend sitting down and taking a pen and paper and really just thinking, turn your smartphone off, don't look at Twitter, Facebook, email, anything like that, and just think, okay, in a perfect world, what would my business and my life look like? And then build it around that. So don't look at what people are saying you have to do it this way. There's 1,000 ways you can build a successful coaching business. There's not just one answer to that. But I think a lot of coaches would be served well by taking a few hours to do that and to give it some thought. But I don't think a lot of them tend to do it. They're right away thinking about, okay, what lead magnet do I need? And what should my website look like? And, what's my niche and everything right away, when if they did some of that earlier work, it would have made the stuff that comes afterwards easier.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. I completely echo the idea of you do a lot of work beforehand to try and make everything else a little bit easier. I think that's definitely advice worth heeding, that's for sure. What about the coach then that's established? So we've gone through sort of, right, this is how the industry is, this is where we see it going. What about the established coach? What if there's someone that wants to change things? What if there's someone that's, looking to, not, I wouldn't say move on from coaching, but they're trying to get to a level, let's say they're on the cusp of exactly where they want to be. They're kind of fighting this whole time for money thing. They're trying to figure out what's best to do, because you don't want to do something that also doesn't work. I've got my own thoughts on this, but I would be open to hearing your thoughts on it as well.
Well, there's nothing wrong with changing your approach. If you had the same business today as you had 10 years ago, there's probably something going wrong or something's up, because it's almost impossible to keep your business the same. It's going to get stale. You're going to get bored and tired of it. So a good example of this, I'm reading a book at the moment. Denise Duffield Thomas wrote Chillpreneur. And she was talking about in that book how as her business grew, she has a 7-figure business, she felt like she had to do everything. So with her brand, she started creating merchandise. So she was creating beach towels, bikinis around her, because she works with women on money blocks, basically. And she was creating just everything and put an app out. And she realized that those things weren't what she should have been doing, because she's really big on, with her offerings, they should be either free or expensive. So free, you'll get people in the door, get them to know, like, and trust her. But then once they consume free resources, they'll hire her for the expensive stuff. The mistake that she made, and she admitted it in the book, is she started getting into the $20 items and the $50 and the $14, all the things that didn't match her brand with it. So I would say there's nothing wrong with mixing up your business model as time goes on. You should be always improving it and evolving, but don't throw stuff on there just for the sake of having more stuff, which she was doing, and she admits that she shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. what sort of filter would you invite people to use then when they're making the decisions around growing things, when they're making decisions around changing things? Have you got any questions or filters around making their decisions easier?
Well, anything that you're adding onto your business, be very careful, because every single thing is going to tax you mentally. It's going to take up energy. There's a cost. So if the example I just gave, you might think, oh, well, there's not much cost to add some of this merchandise in here because it's being done by another party. They're doing that, but there is. And she talks about it in the book too, where every time somebody gives you even $1, there's that expectation that they have somewhat have a bit of control over you, or there's at least there's something there where it taxes you mentally. If somebody pays and something goes wrong and they need help with something, it's you or your team who are going to be helping them with that. So be very careful whenever you add something onto your business. I would ask myself, do I actually really enjoy doing this? Does this make me happy, or does it make me want to throw up? I just hate it. I don't enjoy it. And if it's the latter, I wouldn't do it. If it makes you want to vomit, don't do it. That's probably a bad sign.
Yeah, it's probably a dangerous sign if you look at stuff and go, I'm going to be sick. It's probably doing that. Do you have any parting thoughts for us, Mark, about the coaching industry as a whole? Maybe your message from Mark, if you will, for coaches, and then we'll finish.
Well, I mean, one thing I'm seeing from a lot of coaches is that they're spending too much time on stuff that isn't really important. So they're dithering, or they're procrastinating. They're taking time to work on their logo, their banner on their website, that PDF or whatever, instead of actually getting out there in front of people who could hire them. And I think it's a way to avoid rejection, obviously, but it's kind of like a war. I always say that the victories and the results come out in the battlefield, not in the trenches. So if you're hiding in the trenches, yeah, you'll get safe. You're not going to take any hits, but you're not going to have any victories either. You got to get up out of the foxhole and get out onto the battlefield, and you're going to take a few bullets. But if you want to be successful, it's unavoidable. You have to get out there, and that's what I would say. Don't dither. Don't be a perfectionist. Don't be stuck in this constant research loop. Just get out there and do it.
Well said, Mark. Where can people find out about you? Where can people go to learn more?
Naturalborncoaches.com, and the other link is my Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle. So that's at thecoachingjungle.com, thecoachingjungle.com.
All right, Mark, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. As always, it's nice to chat to a fellow coach about coaching. It was interesting. Obviously, it's gave me a lot to ponder. Hopefully, fellow coaches out there, a lot to think about as well. And I look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.